This might be the most anti-guru success story you'll ever hear. No inspirational Instagram posts, no follow your passion nonsense. Just a guy in Melbourne who picked up the phone 150 times a day until he figured out how to get clients on demand. Sabri Suby built a $74 million marketing machine with zero funding, zero connections, and zero shortcuts. Here's the brutal truth about what actually works. Now, before we dive into this whole rags to riches story, let's pump the brakes for a second. Because I've seen this movie before. Agency founder makes millions, shows off the lifestyle, writes the book, and then quietly fades away when the market shifts. Sabri grew up in Melbourne, Australia. No Ivy League background, no fancy family connections. Just a teenager obsessed with persuasion. At 16, he got his first taste of business. Not as a founder, but as a coffee boy in a direct response agency. That job wasn't glamorous, but it was powerful. It was like being thrown into a masterclass on persuasion. He wasn't there for the paycheck. He was there to learn. By the time he was 17, he was cold calling strangers, selling products and services over the phone. Brutal work. 100 calls a day. Rejection after rejection. But instead of quitting, he got hooked. Sabri had something most people don't. He could take a punch. That resilience, it became his superpower. When Sabri launched King Kong in 2014, he wasn't stepping into a thriving market. The agency world was crowded, noisy, and dominated by creative firms that prioritized branding over results. And here was Sabri, just one guy in a tiny office, trying to build something different. No network, no seed funding, no clients. So what did he do? He picked up the phone every single day. 150 cold calls a day, manually dialed. It sounds like something out of the 1990s. But that's how Sabri started. He wasn't romantic about business. He knew one thing. Without clients, you're not in business. He didn't wait for referrals, didn't post and prey on LinkedIn. He hunted, ruthlessly, and it worked. Slowly, deals started closing. Not huge ones, but enough to validate the model. But what stood out wasn't just his work ethic. It was the way he documented everything. Every script, every objection, every conversion rate. He turned his cold calling into a data lab. And once he had a repeatable pattern, he built his first funnel, targeted ads, persuasive landing pages, and a tightly written sales script to seal the deal. Here's what most people don't realize. This is the phase where 95% of entrepreneurs give up. When the leads don't flow, when the clients ghost, when the cash is tight, most people fold. Sabri didn't. He geeked out on every missed call. He studied every unconverted lead. He treated each failure like feedback. Most agency founders dream of signing a few good clients, landing a couple of retainers, and coasting. Sabri wasn't wired that way. He wasn't trying to survive. He wanted to dominate. The turning point? He stopped thinking like a consultant and started thinking like a machine builder. He asked himself, what would it take for a complete stranger to trust me, sign a contract and pay me thousands without ever meeting me? Most people would assume that's impossible. But Sabri approached it like an engineer. First, he built out a detailed customer acquisition funnel, one of the most sophisticated I've ever seen. It started with bold, direct response ads that made outrageous but specific promises. He didn't hide behind soft branding. His headlines hit nerves. Your marketing agency is stealing from you. Why most businesses will never grow past 7 figures. The brutal truth about scaling a company. These weren't just clickbait. They were hooks laced with hard truth. And when you clicked, you were taken down a rabbit hole, one carefully constructed step at a time. Landing pages, long-form sales letters, testimonials, case studies, email sequences, retargeting ads, phone consultations, the entire journey was mapped. What blew my mind was how obsessively he optimized every step. If an email didn't convert at 10%, he rewrote it. If a landing page underperformed, he ran A/B tests until it sang. He was playing chess while most people were playing checkers. But funnels weren't enough. Sabri needed humans to scale the back end. So he built an inside sales team, trained them using his exact language patterns, objection handling scripts, and even tone of voice. He didn't just hire salespeople, he cloned his own sales brain into them. Then came the automation. CRM systems, automated follow-ups, pipelines that made sure no lead ever went cold. Sabri's calendar stayed booked weeks in advance, even though he wasn't manually doing outreach anymore. In just 5 years, King Kong grew from a solo operation to a revenue monster, crossing $20 million annually. You'd think that after building one of the fastest-growing digital marketing agencies in Australia, raking in millions, dominating SEO rankings, and turning ad spend into gold, Sabri would finally take a breath. But no, the guy didn't slow down. He scaled up. Most people, once they get a taste of success, they loosen the grip. They start doing more podcasts, giving interviews, showing up at masterminds in exotic locations. But Sabri? He was still waking up at 5 a.m., obsessing over split tests, rewriting subject lines, and reading behavioral psychology books before most founders had even opened Slack. By this time, King Kong wasn't just serving clients. It was transforming businesses. It didn't matter if it was a chiropractor in Brisbane or an e-commerce store in the UK. The formula worked, and it worked reliably, because this wasn't a typical creative agency. They weren't selling logos or taglines or vibes. They were selling outcomes. More leads, more sales, more revenue. And if you didn't believe it, they'd walk you through the funnel and show you the numbers. In a world where agencies beg for clients, King Kong said no more than it said yes. Why? Because they only worked with businesses that had a solid offer, could handle scale, and were willing to follow the process. Internally, the company ran like a military unit. Everyone had KPIs. Everyone had dashboards. There were no passengers, only players. Sabri didn't just build this on the back of charisma or hustle. He codified it. He created detailed SOPs for everything. How to onboard a client, how to write a winning Facebook ad, how to train a junior media buyer, how to close a high-ticket prospect using psychology-based scripts. Everything was documented. Nothing was left to chance. That's how you go from great operator to great builder. Then came Sell Like Crazy, the book that changed the game. Most marketing books are fluff, stories, theory, pep talks, not this one. Sabri wrote it like a war manual. Page after page was packed with tactical strategies, headlines that grab attention, offers that convert, psychological triggers that drive urgency. It wasn't a memoir, it was a playbook. That book became an inbound magnet. Leads started pouring in. People would read the book, feel the shift in how they thought about sales, and then call his team. At this point, Sabri could have switched gears and gone full guru, but he didn't. He stayed in the trenches. He built new products, tweaked funnels, reviewed ad spend, hired more talent. And most importantly, he kept his message simple. Get clients, predictably, profitably, at scale. No jargon, no fancy branding. Just brutal clarity and relentless execution. This isn't just a story about scaling a business. It's a mirror that forces you to ask, are you clear on what you're building, or are you just moving fast in circles? Because the real edge, it wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it was clarity. Sabri didn't waste time playing in the gray areas. He knew his outcome, knew his audience, and built his entire playbook around getting from A to B as fast and as repeatably as possible. While others over-engineered their brands and wasted months fiddling with websites, he was picking up the phone, running tests, closing deals, gathering data. He wasn't guessing. He was measuring every word in an ad, every click in a funnel, every minute on a call. And if something moved the needle, it stayed. If it didn't, it was cut. There's a hidden cost to confusion in business. Every day spent without clarity is a day spent drifting. Sabri didn't drift. He sprinted. And not just once, he sprinted daily. Even after the money came. Even after the team grew. Because the hunger didn't disappear, it evolved. So here's the verdict. Did Sabri Suby build lasting wealth, or lose it chasing agency dreams. The numbers tell the story. As of 2025, King Kong is still dominating, still signing clients, still growing. But here's what really convinced me: he built something real. He survived the 2020 crash, the iOS updates that killed other agencies, and every market shift in between. While competitors folded, King Kong adapted. That's not luck. That's systems. Sabri didn't just build an agency. He built a machine that works regardless of trends, platforms, or economic conditions. Because at the end of the day, businesses will always need one thing: more clients. And as long as that's true, his model works. The verdict? He built it, kept it, and is still building it. No flash-in-the-pan success story here, just relentless execution that compounds over time. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect idea, or the perfect strategy. Sabri started with nothing but a phone and the willingness to get rejected 149 times to close one deal. What's your version of picking up the phone? What's the uncomfortable work you're avoiding because it feels too basic, too old school, too beneath you? Because while everyone else is chasing the next shiny marketing tactic, the fundamentals are still sitting there, waiting for someone hungry enough to execute them relentlessly. If a coffee boy from Melbourne can build a $74 million empire by doing what everyone else was too proud to do, what's really stopping you from starting today? If this story hit different and made you realize it's time to stop making excuses, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about people who built empires the hard way. And drop a comment below. What's the one uncomfortable task you've been avoiding that could change your business? Because I read every single comment, and your breakthrough might be hiding in that thing you don't want to do. See you in the next one.